Despite being one of the biggest and best performers from the top 100 alts, the Rndr token has been consolidating here for about a month now in between the $10 to $11 range. So in today's episode of the Everything Crypto Show, I want to break down why I am still extremely bullish on this AI coin and discuss some upcoming catalysts that I believe could push this thing to new all-time highs. Now, before we hop into the content, just a friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor. I am simply here for your crypto news and entertainment purposes. And if you do enjoy the content, please consider hitting that sub and like button and turn that notification bell on so you can be notified when all of our latest videos go live on the channel. So without further ado, we are going to hop right into today's altcoin of discussion, and that's going to be none other than the Rndr token. Now, if you guys have been with the channel for a while, you know that we've been covering this altcoin on the channel since last year. And if we take a look at its performance since the beginning of last year, this coin is up about 3,000% from the bear market lows at about 40 cents, as it currently sits at $10.14. So in the last video we made about Rndr, I believe it was last week, and this was prior to the Nvidia earnings that did release. Now, the reason we spoke about Rndr prior to the Nvidia earnings going live is because if we actually take a look at the past 6 months, this was the last Nvidia earnings call here. The stock gapped up initially about 16.4%, and since then it's run like another 57%. But what I want to take a look at is how Nvidia reacted and how Rndr responded and kind of moved in tandem with Nvidia. So you can see here between the 21st and the 23rd, we saw this big move up for Nvidia stock. And then if we take a look at Rndr here, you can see on the 21st that it was at about $6, just under $7. Initially ran up to $8, came back down to the high $6 range, about $6.90 more or less, and then boom, this thing ripped to fresh all-time highs at about $13.15, give or take. So the last Nvidia earnings call, and earnings beat acted as a positive catalyst for Rndr and for a bunch of other AI coins to make their way to the upside. Now, this time I was expecting a similar thing to occur, where, basically if Nvidia beat earnings, I was expecting it to gap up if Wall Street liked the numbers and that Rndr would follow suit. So we take a look at what happened with Nvidia, and this stock is up about 14% from its earnings. And this most recent earnings report came out on May 22nd. Now, if we take a look at Rndr, however, this thing initially popped up here on the Nvidia beat, and then boom, it actually came right back down, and it's now sitting at about the $10 range. So pretty interesting that we kind of got like an inverse reaction this time to what we got last time. We know that Rndr is, we know that Jules Urbach, the CEO of Rndr, he does work with Jensen Huang. He's been speaking at the Nvidia conferences for, I think it's like the past 10 years more or less. So Rndr is definitely on Nvidia's radar. And yeah, we did see an inverse move though here, however. So I kind of want to talk about this and just discuss, what is the next catalyst for this AI altcoin specifically, and other ones like Tau and like Fetch AI. So first things first, I'm not super worried about this inverse reaction here from Rndr. I think that as long as Nvidia remains bullish, these altcoins don't have to move in lockstep with Nvidia, but as long as people are bullish on AI, I think that these altcoins are going to be massive beneficiaries of this. And, aside from the direct connections between Rndr and Nvidia, Nvidia beating earnings signals strong demand for GPU, and that is exactly what Rndr is offering with their decentralized GPU fleet. So, I think as long as AI remains the big narrative in the market, that Rndr will continue to be one of the better performers. Now, a tailwind here, not only for Rndr, but really for the entire market, is that the Ethereum spot ETFs were approved by the SEC. So we know that Bitcoin has been leading the pack for a majority of the bull run. I really think that a lot of that had to do with the spot ETF approval with the halving. I think now that that has been baked in, I do still believe that Bitcoin is going to be a great performer. I see it surpassing 100K in this bull run personally. However, I do think that now we are entering phase 2 of the market cycle where Ethereum begins to outperform and brings the rest of the altcoin market up with it. And then, once Ethereum has had its time to outperform, that is when we see the true alt season take place. So this is not a Rndr specific catalyst, but obviously one that still does impact Rndr. Now, for the more Rndr specific things I do want to speak about, the first thing is the Apple WWDC event. As of right now, there's a lot of speculation that Apple is going to announce a ton of AI news when it comes to this event. I think it's something that a lot of people are looking for from Apple, and I do think that they're very aware of that, and that this event will be very focused on AI, on large language models, on using technology to automate some tasks and make them simpler. And we also know that the Rndr network does have some very interesting connections with Apple. In fact, we covered this on the channel previously. So Apple, they featured their new M4 chip for the new iPad. And if we actually take a look at this trailer, they featured the Octane X platform within this trailer for millions of people to watch. And if you recognize that logo in the top left, you should, because that is the Rndr logo. Also here on that cherry as well, you can kind of see it, which somebody pointed out. But Octane X is the platform which is powered by the Rndr network. So, sorry guys, I just got a phone call. So we know that, we also know that the Rndr network, that Octane X was actually launched as an app on the Apple Vision Pro. Now we know that the new iPad is also featuring Octane X. So if Apple does have some big event here regarding AI, I do think that once again, Rndr could be a nice beneficiary of that as well. So I mean, we're talking about Nvidia and Apple, two of the three largest companies in the world, both of whom have connections to Rndr. And yeah, that's why I do remain very bullish on this altcoin. Now, the last thing that I do want to talk about, and this is more Rndr specific, this is RNP11. So RNP11 was proposed at the end of March. So it's been about 2 months since it was proposed. I think maybe people are not as focused on it anymore, but I really think people should be, because this proposal, when it passes, I think is going to do a ton of things for the demand and the supply of the Rndr token, which I do believe will lead to increases in price. So basically, what they're talking about here is this was around the time that Stability AI, one of the largest AI companies in the world, basically forged a collaboration, a partnership with Rndr. And we saw Imad Mostak, who was the initial CEO of Stability AI, actually quit and then join the Rndr advisory board. So Stability AI has made significant strides in democratizing AI technology and fostering innovation through its open source approach. As large AI models continue to find success, data availability presents itself as one of the greatest barriers towards the advancement of AI. Large datasets like ImageNet have created models like Stable Diffusion. Language datasets have created large language models like GPT-4. Stability, together with Rndr, can take the next step towards 3D AI by creating and augmenting 1 billion 3D assets for model training. So they're basically talking about, making these models over 1 billion 3D assets for open source model training, and Rndr nodes will participate in asset creation and storage. Now, buyers interested in using the dataset will pay exclusively in Rndr on the network, and users will have the option to stake Rndr and receive rewards from nodes who do generate that training revenue. So now we are talking about making 1 billion 3D assets, basically for that open source AI development that must be purchased in Rndr tokens. Rndr nodes are going to participate in the asset creation and storage, and users will have the option to stake Rndr and receive rewards from nodes who generate that training revenue. Now, there's already a lot to kind of to consider right there in terms of the staking, in terms of the increased demand for Rndr token. The one thing as well to keep in mind is the burns. So the Rndr network does do periodic burns, and if we're seeing these nodes being put towards creating 1 billion 3D assets, this should ramp up the usage of the network, which will therefore also ramp up the burns. So super interesting stuff, guys. I really think that this proposal right here, does provide a fundamental reason for the demand and the supply, just for the demand to increase while the supply that is available on the market is decreasing as people are staking. And more burns are being made. So interesting stuff there with RNP11. Now to wrap things up, I do want to take a quick look at the chart. The one thing I'm seeing here with Rndr, and I think it's pretty safe to put this in here now. I was kind of just waiting on it, but generally speaking, round numbers do act as strong areas of support, and I'd been noticing that the $10 mark has definitely been acting as some sort of support and resistance for this coin. It's kind of consolidating here in this range now on the weekly, having bounced off of it on 4 different candles. Now, the notable thing here is that we are still above that 2018 all-time high, which came in at about 880, sitting at the $10 mark. And to me, if the market remains bullish, I do think that this coin most likely wants to make its way back up to that all-time high at 1360, which would present about 36-35% upside from current prices. Now, I do also want to take a look at the Rndr Bitcoin pair, okay? And when you value Rndr against Bitcoin, it looks pretty similar in the sense where it's above its it's actually right now below its 2018 all-time high once again. And if I actually zoom out from here, we can just see from the beginning of the bull market, January 2023, this token is still up 500% versus Bitcoin. And I do expect this outperformance to continue, especially now that I do believe we are kind of entering phase 2 in which Ethereum and alts will begin to lead the pack versus Bitcoin. I think that the alts that have already been leading the pack versus Bitcoin will just continue to do so. So on that note, I hope you did enjoy the content in today's video. I hope you are all staying happy, safe, and healthy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out for now.